forth?
Well, now let's talk about keeping the subsidy.
Yes.
We'll be talking about 150 billion naira every month. And that will translate into what kind of infrastructural development and what kind of schools or hospitals you can think of that can make. And then when you look at the arbitrage that the subsidy being provided in Nigeria is creating for people that will buy cheap oil from Nigeria and sell it in neighboring countries at expensive price. And this, if you look at the population growth in Nigeria, the population is continuously growing. And that means tomorrow we're going, instead of having maybe 150 billion, it's going to reach 200 billion or more than that. So the budget is going to be increasing continuously. And that will reduce the government power to do other development projects. And so that is keeping the subsidy, because the subsidy started since Obasanjo regime, the first regime. And then they didn't think of how to remove it.
Sorry.
And taking the steps to removing it. Removing subsidy, it has nothing to do with the month or a day or a year to remove it. It's about certain conditions you have to fulfill before you remove it. So me as a petroleum economist and most other experts also believe that petroleum subsidy is not sustainable, especially when the government has to borrow money to pay for the consumption of petroleum. And when you look at the government involvement in the petroleum sector, the government regulation, it comes with huge costs. So the best thing to do is to remove the government involvement, direct involvement in the sector. But when you remove the subsidy, now, assuming you don't remove it, because the timing is everything when it comes to policies like that, it's not about 18 months. It depends on what you do, what you are going to do within the 18 months before the time arrives. So I think when you remove the petroleum subsidy, what you're going to have is, at the moment when we have the barrel of oil around $90 per barrel, you're going to see the petrol at the filling station around 400 naira per liter. And what you're going to have is the volatility of the pump price, because anytime the crude oil price increases, the liter at the filling station is going to increase. Whenever naira loses value, the price at the pump station is going to increase. So the volatility is going to be very frequent. And Nigerians don't want that. And Nigerians cannot afford 400 naira per liter or far more than that because of so much exposure to the vulnerabilities of our crude oil price and the value of our currency. And then that's going to reduce the purchasing power of people's income. And eventually, I think Nigerians are going to fall into poverty, more poverty, and then the inflation is going to go above 20%. So I don't think it's the right time for this administration to remove the petroleum subsidy. If they plan to remove the subsidy in the last 7 years, they should have make the plan to do that and set the environment for them to remove it swiftly. And you cannot just remove subsidy like that once and for all. You have to phase it out through certain strategies. And that's why I recommended what I call the targeted subsidy. You cannot just remove it totally and say you are removing your hand. And giving Nigerians money, cash as palliatives, should never be the option, because what Nigerians want is to give them the environment for them to work and get far more than 5,000 you plan to give them. And then how many millions of Nigerians are you going to give 5,000 every month to compensate what the petrol subsidy is providing for them at the moment? The targeted subsidy should come after setting the conditions or fulfilling the conditions that will make Nigerian government eligible to remove the petroleum subsidy. So we for the moment, we'll be oblivious of the laws and look at what's good for Nigerians, looking at the poverty and low income population we have in Nigeria. Before we even implement the targeted subsidy, there are certain conditions. Number one, for any subsidy removal, there has to be sufficient refining capacities within Nigeria. We should not be importing refined petroleum. At the moment, we do what we call the crude oil swap. We give our crude oil and we bring in refined petroleum. And that's almost on a daily basis, we are losing $45 million. And 70% of our crude oil is not giving us dollars. So our foreign reserve is deteriorating because of that. So when you have local refining capacities, maybe Dangote refinery might help, even though Dangote refinery may not change the whole story. It does not mean the petrol is going to be cheaper. That's a very long story there. And we can still revamp and revive some of these dilapidated or old or outdated refineries. So that's the first condition. And this will help us to reduce the importation and reduce how much we pay for the imported petroleum products, which is the biggest bill in our import basket. And that will reduce the oversupply of Naira and appreciate the value of Naira. So we are fulfilling the second condition, which is exchange rate stability. And then for you to remove petroleum subsidy, you have to bring down the inflation rate to less than 10%. Because you cannot remove petroleum subsidy when you are already putting your inflation at 17%. But how many percent do you want to push it to when you remove the petroleum subsidy? You just directly said everything is linked to the petrol price because of transportation. So now these are the conditions. Now let's assume the Nigerian government has fulfilled these conditions. It's not about 18 months. It's about these conditions. If in the next 3 months you can fulfill these conditions, then go ahead and remove the petroleum subsidy. If it is 1 million years to come, that until when you fulfill these conditions, that is when you should remove the petroleum subsidy. But even as at then, you have to take step by step to remove it, to phasing out. Number one, you have to checkmate and do the auditing of the liters we consume in Nigeria. They said 60, 70 million liters per day, which is not true. I think to me, on an estimate, I would say conservatively we consume maybe 50 million liters in Nigeria. And I told you about the arbitrage that is happening in the neighboring countries from Nigeria. And when you do that kind of auditing, now you are taking the first steps to removing the subsidy so that you know how much you can afford that is genuinely for Nigerians. And then you go to number two, which is providing the mass transport system or the mass transport or public transport system, where not every Nigerian should have a car. So you are doing energy conservative policy where you're going to reduce energy per capita consumption in Nigeria. How much me and you we consume on daily basis should be reduced first, so that we reduce how much we consume. And that is when you go to the targeted subsidy. Under targeted subsidy, we have Nigerians who will apply to benefit from the petroleum subsidy. If you are already a rich guy, you don't have to apply. You don't have to apply. Well, yeah. You don't have to apply to participate in the petroleum subsidy, right? People like us, as lecturers, we quickly go and sign up. But barista, they have all the money.
Exactly, but it still affects all of us.
So what I'm saying is, people that want to participate and benefit, and allegedly is going to be the masses, the poor, they would subscribe to participate in the program. And then we have filling stations who will subscribe or affiliate to the petroleum subsidy. So if you're a filling station and you are providing a subsidized petrol, then you have to sell it at the regulated price. And then the people will come in. When they are doing the register, we take their biometric data and their vehicle data and put it in a database. We give you an electronic sticker. And when you come to the filling station, we verify that you are a Nigerian, you are this person, and it matches with their vehicle.
Ideally, this makes a lot of sense.
Anytime I start talking, cut me off, but I have to really finish this one.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
So when you come to the filling station, we try to verify you are a true Nigerian that subscribe to this program. And then we give you maximum number or amount of liters you should consume, we should subsidize for you within that month. And then you see people, you see other filling stations that are not affiliating to the subsidy, discharging the fuel at the market price. So you see people will have to choose. Should I go to the filling station that is providing subsidy, or should I have the money enough to buy from the unsubsidized price? So more or less what you have is like the private or public filling stations. And then by doing that, you are already reducing the pressure, the burden of the subsidy you are paying, and you are narrowing down the subsidy to the people that truly need it, which are the poor.
I have a follow-up question for you based on this. I really like this, your recommendation. It's one of the brightest I've heard.
Yeah, because the idea is to reduce the burden for the first time, because there are some poor people that cannot just afford to be exposed to this high level of
so that's my question. I've read that just about a quarter of Nigeria consumes the bulk of the fuel which we consume.
Which they can afford the market price.
Yes, and those are the bigger cities.
So what we are doing, we are eliminating those that don't deserve to benefit from the petroleum subsidy. How many rich people that they can fuel their cars with whatever price it is? but we are still benefiting from subsidy. What we are doing, we are eliminating those that you are not supposed to benefit from the petroleum subsidy, and then providing it to the people. That's why we call it targeted. We are targeting the poor, and then we make sure that we have all these filling stations that subscribe to the subsidy program across the country, especially in rural areas where we have the large majority are poor. And so that when you are doing that, you are now providing the protection and the cushion on the poor.
As opposed to giving them
that's
the
why
money.
I said this administration, when they say they're suspending the petroleum subsidy, they are just suspending it not because they are creating plans like this.
But for
they are doing that
reasons.
just to suspend the pressure or the punishment of Nigerians that they want to do because they want to use them for electoral purposes. So punishing Nigerians after using them for electoral votes by removing the subsidy after using them, winning the election, and then you try to remove the subsidy, to me that's not fair. That's to me, I call it in my article, I call it treason. So if you want to remove petroleum subsidy, remove it now.
Yeah.
But after 18 months, you're back to the square one. Nothing has changed. What you are doing is, you know that if you remove the petroleum subsidy today, people will be angry. They will not vote for your party. And you say, okay, let's delay it. So you are patronizing Nigerians.
So it's an emotional decision.
Which is not fair. Nigerians don't deserve that.
If you are removing subsidy
even by 18 months, you have to set these kind of conditions before you do that. It's not determined by the election period.